So in today's video, I'm going to review for you this Haiger hang-on back filter, although it's more of a hang-on canister filter than a hang-on back, but let's get back to that in a minute. Now, as many of you will know, about 6 months ago, I started converting half of my garage into this dedicated fish and shrimp room. And whilst I was carrying out and documenting the construction work, I was contacted by Haiger, the aquarium equipment manufacturer. They said, Richard, we love what you're doing with the space and we'd like to support you. Can we send you some equipment to use in your fish and shrimp room? In return, all we'd ask you to do is to create a video telling people what you thought of our products. Now, personally, I can't stand a review video where the person gets a product and they're going to review it and all they do is take it out the box and they've never used it and they tell you how marvelous it is just because the manufacturer has sent it to them for free. I said to Haiger I would be more than happy for them to send me a product and I'd be more than happy to create a video to tell people what I thought of it, providing one, I could use the product for at least 3 months before I review it, and two, I'm allowed to give my honest opinion and my honest feedback. So that's what I'm going to do today. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Richard and I'm the author of the Neocaridina Shrimp Handbook. So let's start with an overview of what the product is. Now clearly it's an aquarium filter, it's designed to filter your aquarium water, but what Haiger have done is they've taken the principles of a hang-on back filter and they've taken the principles of a canister filter and they've fused the two together. And what we actually get is the best of both worlds. They've created a hang-on canister filter. Now, as the name very much suggests, the filter hangs on the back, or in my case, the side of your aquarium, and it's good for glass which is up to 8 mil thick, which is about 3/4 of an inch thick. Now, unlike a traditional hang-on back filter, it's a completely sealed unit, meaning no water can leak out of the filter. Haiger have built it with 2 separate intakes. So it has the main intake, which is down low, exactly where you'd expect it to be, near the substrate, but it also incorporates a surface skimmer. So the water is drawn in from down low, like a traditional hang-on back filter, but also it skims the surface, meaning you don't get that oily film buildup on the surface of the water, which can restrict the amount of oxygen getting dissolved into your aquarium water. It also has 3 different methods for returning the water to your filter. You can just have nothing, you can just have the outlet pipe, you can have the spray bar, or it comes with a duckbill adapter, meaning you get a more concentrated jet of water, which is what I'm using here for my rainbow fish because they love the slightly higher flow. Now this filter really does run quiet. In fact, the manufacturers say it runs at less than 30 decibels, which is really quite quiet. And you can adjust both the intake and the outflow using the small controls that restrict the amount of water the filter can either draw in or put out. So on the whole, it's a really well-designed filter. Now let's take a look at some of the things I do like about this filter, and then we'll look at some of the things I really don't like. The first thing I really like is the look. Truth be told, I love the colors of it, and I think it looks really smart. I have mine sitting on the side of my aquarium. Obviously, most people would have it on the back, but I like the way it looks. It's a sleek design, it's fairly modern. It really works for me. I also really like the fact it's a sealed unit. If you've ever had a hang-on back filter running that you perhaps haven't serviced as often as you should, and sometimes the outflow can get blocked up, especially if it's flowing out through a sponge that can become clogged, then that hang-on back filter will keep drawing in water, even though it can't escape into the tank and it ultimately floods over onto your floor. This is a totally sealed unit. It's more like a canister filter in that respect. So even if it becomes clogged, then the flow slows down, but it doesn't flood your house. And that's a real bonus, especially if you're newer to the hobby and you don't appreciate how easy it is to flood your house using a hang-on back filter. Now this filter comes with everything you need to get it up and running, and it really is easy to set up. The only thing you have to bear in mind is that when you are setting it up, you do have to fill the chambers with water before you put the lid on and put it in your tank, but that's in the instructions, which are fairly clear. So I really like the fact it's easy to set up and it comes with all the media you'll need. With that said, there is still some space. So when I first set mine up, I used that space to add filter floss just to polish my aquarium. Because it was a newly set up tank and it had lots of fine debris from the wood, from the substrate, etc. I took that little void and I filled it with filter floss. But you might choose to put some carbon in there or some more ceramic media or whatever it is you want to adapt it to fit your particular needs. And I like that. It also comes with an intake sponge. Now the intake sponge is not as big as you might like. It's actually, rather than sitting outside of the intake pipe, it actually sits inside, but it does the job. It prevents baby fish and shrimp from being sucked into the filter, and that's a real bonus. The final thing I really like about this filter is the fact you can adjust the flow. You can tone down the output if for whatever reason you don't want the water to be returned as quickly as the filter pumps it. Now, in the tank I've got it on now, I'm running some pseudomogil, red neon rainbow fish, so I like the flow. But if I was perhaps had a betta in there that was building a bubble nest, or maybe some gouramis that were trying to breed, I might turn that flow right down, reducing the amount of turbulence on the surface of the water being returned. Now, with all that said, there are some things I don't like about the filter. The first of which is, if you end up having some air in the canister when you service it or when you first fill it up, it takes forever for that air to come out. I serviced that filter just yesterday. I took it out, I removed the filter frost, put a little bit of fresh in, made sure the chamber was full of water, put the lid on, put the filter back on. It still has some air in it, and I don't know if it'll pick up on the microphone, but essentially every 10 or 15 seconds you get a little shh, and some bubbles come out. And again, 10 or 15 seconds later, shh. Now, I've not found any way to get that air out. It's mildly irritating. It's not a deal breaker. I wouldn't not buy another one because of that, but it is irritating the fact you can't get the last of that air out. You have to just let the system purge itself. If I'm honest, I also don't like the fact that the surface skimmer can't be removed. Surface skimmers do serve their purpose. They do fit in aquariums. There are occasions we want to be running a surface skimmer, but not all the time. So if you are feeding a lot of flake food, you don't necessarily want the surface to be skimmed because the flake food will go down the skimmer. I've got floating plants here. It's another situation where I wouldn't necessarily run a surface skimmer if I could remove it. There is on this filter no way to remove that, and I don't think that would have been a major change in design if when you put the pipework together, there was just an option not to add the skimmer. On a similar note, the second flaw to my mind is you really want the surface skimmer to be at the surface, and this one, it does sink occasionally, especially if you have floating plants. It only needs 2 or 3 floating plants to get caught on it, and it sinks down, which means your surface skimmer is now a mid-water skimmer, which doesn't really serve much use to me. I've just ordered myself some more filter intake sponges, and I'm actually going to remove the head of the surface skimmer and just put a filter sponge over that, essentially giving me 2 intakes to my filter. But again, as per my previous point, if you could just remove the surface skimmer, I could do away with it and I'll be absolutely fine. So with all of that said, what are my final thoughts on this filter, and would I get more to go in my fish room? Well, my final thoughts are, it's a great filter. I love it. They come in 4 different sizes. I believe you can get them to go from your nano tank up to about 60 gallons, which is really useful. I think they look great. I think it does a good job of filtering my aquarium. I like the fact it's easy to set up and comes with the media you need, but you can adjust and adapt it to fit your needs. You can add some carbon or some Purigen. You can add filter frost to polish the water, etc. And that is a real bonus. I also love the fact it's such an easy filter to service. You literally pop the 2 pipes off, take the unit to the sink, take the lid off, clean it, put it back together, return it. 5 minutes, I was done. There is nothing worse than filter maintenance that seems to drag on for hours. And this little unit was really easy to service. I would certainly get another one, and I would certainly recommend to others, if they were looking for a hang-on back filter or a small canister filter, that they seriously consider this little unit from Haiger. Thank you very much, Haiger, for sponsoring this video and for sending me the Haiger hang-on canister filter. Thanks for watching.